And there's a reason why I prefer Highway Through Hell over Heavy Rescue 401, hands down.
Okay, what is it?
Because Highway Through Hell, it's just guys going out there and getting it done no matter what. Regardless if they got to put a burning truck on a wooden flatbed to get it off the Coca-Cola, or pulling up camper vans that are still attached to the trailer with a guy down there unhooking them. Like there's more risk, there's more danger. It makes for a better TV show. Would I want to be in that situation? No, but it's fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It is true. Those guys are out in the mountains. They're out in the, you know what I mean? They're not off of a major highway at all times, right? They're not within 20 minutes of a city. They're, you know what I mean? Like the resources they have to work with are probably less given the situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they do is, you might want to call it backwoods, but it's definitely like, I think you're right. From a TV standpoint, it's better TV. From a professional standpoint, I don't know. I haven't watched enough of it. I haven't watched Highway Through Hell in years to be able to, you know, I remember the old days of the show. And yeah, no, that was in its early stages where I'm sure it developed and, you know, equipment changed and everything else. But
and the choiring boys, oh, those are just Al and what's the other guy that he has working with him? Oh, I can't remember his name, but those two guys, fucking hilarious.
Al is great.
Getting in fights on yelling matches on stupid drivers. It's just like, yes, tell that guy he's a stupid idiot for not chaining up and blocking all these people. Yank him up the hill.
It was nice. Yeah, they showed that side of it. They actually showed the reality. How many, like, I don't know how many trucks I've yelled at on scene that are driving by with their phones out trying to watch us, right? Going real slow, and we're yelling and screaming at them and all that.
Hey everyone, I'm Brad from Calgary.
This is Sean from Cambridge, Ontario.
I'm Terry from Cornwall, Ontario.
Hey, this is Larry from Pitt Meadows, British Columbia, and you're listening to the Towing Life Podcast.
Welcome to the Towing Life Podcast, where the ditches are deep, the trucks are loaded, but the drivers are not. I am your host, TowManG, and as usual, I'm joined by my co-host, friend, and former co-worker, the man with very strong opinions, Mr. PlainGuy. Also joining us this week is our wonderful producer, Sarah, that keeps everything going, working smoothly behind the scenes, week in and week out. I don't know what else to say. That pretty much sums everything up.
I was sitting waiting. I'm like, is there something else? I'm going to wait. Normally I just cut you off. So I was going to wait. And then there was nothing. So how are you, G? How are you, Sarah?
I'm doing pretty good.
Me too. Yeah. I needed a tow this week, but otherwise I'm pretty good.
I actually kind of want to hear that story.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a really sad, silly story that, like, I love my husband. I really, truly do. But I'm actually the automotive expert in the family, which is not saying a whole lot. And he decided to park his car in the mud.
Ooh.
Like park and sit?
No. It looked like grass, but I knew it was mud. And there was a giant crane in his usual parking spot. So he was like, oh, I'll just park on the other side of your car. And I'm watching from my kitchen window, and I'm just like, no, stop. And I run out there. And by the time I got out there, it was just way too
This is in your driveway.
This is in our driveway. They're doing construction, so the place is a mess. And so we're out there, and I'm like, I'm not calling a tow truck. I'm going to get this car out on my own. So we're like looking around for plywood and 2x4s. And I'm like, okay, if we can just drive it up, because we could go forward a bit. I'm like, if we could get it up and then roll it back onto the plywood, I think if I just gun it, I can get her out. And the piece of plywood, and my air quotes here, it was actually like this piece of plastic. And when everything was going great, rolled up onto the two pieces of plastic. And then when we went to reverse, the plastic went flying forward, and we just got way deeper in the mud.
That's always the best when you see someone try to get themselves out and you show up with a winch and they're like, oh, I've got this here already. And you just kick it right out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't need any of this.
He just like hook out in like 3 minutes. My husband's just like, oh. Is that how
I don't
that's
know how many
done?
times I've gotten to winch outs and it looks like a yard sale underneath the vehicle, right? They have thrown floor mats in there. They have thrown lumber. They have thrown. I've seen hoodies in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Guys take off their hoodies and try and put them in for traction. It is like the go-to for people where it's like, I get it. I don't want to call a tow truck. I want to be able to get out of this. But then at the same time, either A, it normally ends up making it worse. Where if like if you would have called me at the beginning, I wouldn't have had to crawl in mud. I could have just literally gotten you out of here. Or you're fighting and moving all kinds of stuff out of the way because they found anything and everything they could in their car to shove under it. I've seen snow brushes shoved under. I've seen just trying to get any sort of traction. But I've definitely seen what you were talking about where people put things under the wheel, and especially if it is like a plastic. And as soon as you spin the tires, they just go, see ya.
And I was
When people
embarrassed.
try to get themselves out with ratchet straps.
Yeah, I've seen that too. That's scary.
So I was at a point where I had this like really pathetic tow strap in my hand, and I'm looking at my little Honda Fit, and I'm like, "Can you do it?" And I was like,
"Oh,
no.
It's buried in mud. You looking for fit? You up to it, big guy?
So-
You think you can handle this? No.
If you were actually able to do it, I would have said put that in as the recovery of the month.
Yeah,
because
I think I would have won the recovery of the month if I could recover it with my
Absolutely.
Honda Fit.
Absolutely. That is a great time to remind everyone, if you haven't already, be sure to head over to www.towinglife.ca/recovery. You can win a $50 Canadian Amazon gift card and your spot in our 2024 calendar. It is simple. We all have photos of recoveries of jobs that we have done. It's that simple. We just have them. It's in our nature. I would say that most tow operators' phones, when we fill up our memory, and 70% of it are tow truck related photos, whether it be recoveries, photos of our trucks, photos of something that we broke trying to repair, or trying something we're taking apart, trying to remember how it goes back together. So I know of those thousands of photos on your phone that there is recovery photos. So submit them at towinglife.ca/recovery. Put in a description of the job that you did, what made it hard, what made, ideas that you used that made it easy. You're thinking outside the box, different things. Submit it, get your chance to win. The submissions have already started rolling in. We will be announcing them in this case, next episode. We will announce our January winner. We will announce the winners on the last episode of every month. You'll see them over on Facebook as well as on the Towing Life podcast show. And yeah, get over there now. Enter in more stories. If you have more
if
than
you
one,
don't win in the month that you submit, don't worry, because you are still in that pool to win the following month.
Absolutely. Every month we will be picking the highest rated recovery that we have in the pool. So we are 3 of the 4. There is one hidden guest judge who is a recovery expert who is also giving their opinion on it. So you will be rated, and then from there we will continuously every month grab the highest rated. So just because you don't get January or February doesn't mean you aren't next on the line for March, April, May, whatever the case may be. So hurry and get them in. We'll get them rated, and we'll announce a winner next week. So yes, Sarah, the Honda Fit pulling out your husband's vehicle, I think would have scored very high in the recovery of the month and given you a chance to take home that infamous $50 Canadian Amazon gift card. Wow, that one was hard.
English is
that
hard.
would definitely count as being undergunned.
Yeah, I think that is using mechanical leverage to your advantage if you could have gotten that one out there. While you're on our website, don't forget to check out the store that we have now for all of our merch. I'm wearing some now. G's wearing one now. Producer Sarah's not wearing any, but that's okay. There is everything.
I'm in pink.
I think I have a couple that have some pink on them. Yeah. I think that you can actually get the hoodie, some of them in purple, some of them in pink. There's different color options for everybody. But I've got the towing saved me from becoming a porn star. Now I'm just a hooker. G's wearing the Eat Sleep Tow. It's not the photo from the mug, actually, on the photo. Yeah. He's got the Eat Sleep Tow on. There's all kinds there. We're constantly adding. I've worked on G's request from last week. It is ready to go and ready to be launched. It just isn't out quite yet. So head on over towinglife.ca/shop. There's t-shirts, there's hoodies, there's mugs, hats. Hats are something we've been asked about. Hats are something I want to start working on. We just got to work on a provider to get those set up for you guys. So be sure to check in regularly. Towinglife.ca.
If you want something on a shirt, let us know.
Yeah. If you have an idea where you look at that, because a lot of it is just I find stuff and go, I want to put that on a shirt.
Yeah.
So if you have an idea, feel free to send us a photo. We'll rework it. We'll come up with something, and we'll put it out on the Towing Life store shop. So what we want to talk about today. All right. So
you probably already know from the title, but
if you guys don't know, because I don't read titles, I just hit play. I go on Spotify or Apple Podcast, all the places you can find the Towing Life podcast.
And on YouTube.
And
You'll
on
definitely know if you clicked on the YouTube video because it's in the thumbnail and it's in the title.
We are going to be talking about Heavy Rescue 401. The final season has launched yesterday. It came out. Yeah. The final season is here. Heavy Rescue 401 was not renewed for an 8th season, I want to say. This is the 7th season, I believe, that is airing. It was not renewed for an 8th season. There is a lot of conspiracies on why that is. I don't actually know. Did the show just run its course? Did it, we don't know. But the fact of the matter is it will not be coming back. It is going into its last season. So all the guys, Colin, Gary, John Allen, Andrew, Sonny, Bear, I'm trying to go off this poster. Kevin, it will be the last year of the season that you'll be able to catch them. So you will want to be sure to check them out every Monday night. I want to say it's at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m.
I don't know. I just watch it on Crave.
You just watch it on Crave, CTV. You can go right now over to ctv.ca. I know this for Canadians. I don't know about Americans, and watch it for free without a subscription to a cable package and actually watch all the previous seasons. I was watching an episode earlier there. So it is the last one. So we want to talk a lot of it about Heavy Rescue 401 and its impact and everything else that it's had on the industry. G, I want to ask you first before we even get into it. Who is your favorite star of Heavy Rescue 401?
Oh, my favorite.
You can have the same one as me.
My favorite star. I'm going to say Colin.
That's mean. All right, well, now I'm going to change mine. Sorry, Colin. Are you so much of a Colin fan that you got a Colin bobblehead?
No.
Then how can you say Colin is your favorite?
Colin is my favorite. And the reason being is I'm pretty sure when the show came out, I think me and Colin are pretty much the same age.
Okay.
So for someone getting into the industry and actually watching how he progressed, now granted it is in his father's company, so he had a lot more growth opportunities than some other towing areas or towing companies that you could be in, but more so his growth of an operator and how you can see that he thinks differently now in these later seasons as he did in the beginning. It's really something to look up to and actually see the same changes that you see on TV in yourself as you're also growing as an operator, which I think was something that really helped me when I was first got into towing.
Well, I think that's fair, right? I think a lot of TV shows, and especially when they're reality TV shows, anytime you can see character growth, it's great. And not saying none of these other operators on this list or on this poster didn't, grow grow their experience, anything else. But at the same time, when you can watch the younger, right? I remember Highway Through Hell. I don't remember his name, but his stepson, Jamie's stepson, was a big one that people really enjoyed on the show because he was young and they were watching him learn and grow into the business and the trouble that he got into and everything else. Yeah. So I can see a lot of that whenever it comes to Colin. Well, in that case, then, Sarah, actually, let's go with you first. Sarah, do you have a favorite? I know you were limited on the Heavy Rescue 401 bunch, being originally out from the West Coast. I'm sure you've seen more of Highway Through Hell. With your limited experience, do you have a favorite star or cast member from Heavy Rescue?
Well, we were talking about Gary earlier but that's like apart from Heavy Rescue. I just think that them at Preferred Towing are just absolutely awesome people. And so in general, he's probably my favorite. But yeah, it's not fair because I'm a West Coaster. So like Highway Through Hell is like, I'm team Highway Through Hell. So I feel like I'm an unfair, I have an unfair bias here.
You're part of the reason Heavy Rescue got canceled. Then you were supporting Highway Through Hell. You were
Yeah,
like,
I'm the reason.
Shut them down. Shut them down. This isn't even TV. No, that is awesome. Yeah, we're gonna get into a bit later. Talking about some of the stuff Preferred Towing has done off of the TV show in their side business. What makes them kind of a standard for just how to be a good person. But all right, well, we can't sit here and just constantly love Preferred. So I'm gonna take Carrie Schmidt. And the reason, as much as I've actually shit on Carrie on episodes before, with his talks on laws, that man on the blooper reels alone is gold.
There's blooper reels?
There's blooper reels. Yeah, you haven't seen them. They just came out on Facebook last week. They had a bunch of blooper reels that came out, and Carrie Schmidt was most of it, trying to change up how he said things, and it just wasn't natural. And you know, he's got a lot more of the speaking part, right? He's very big in the PR side of the Ontario Provincial Police, and their involvement with the show is critical to the success of the show.
Yeah.
Right. Because without, you know, I think without that police edge to it too, you know, getting access to all this stuff is going to be tough. But at the same time, it shows a different side of them. Carrie Schmidt has been involved with OPP and how they're perceived in the media and everything else and all that good stuff. And he has some very funny moments on the show, from pushing cars out in the preview of this week's episode that came out to, you know, just stumbling over words and everything like that. So I'm definitely going to go with, for an entertainment value alone, in the case of Heavy Rescue 401, I am going to go with Carrie Schmidt.
I think Carrie brings a lot to the show. As well, it's not even so much the show. He's much larger than the show, because I know the girlfriend always says, oh, that guy from that TV show is posting on Twitter again. And he's a big advocate for slow down and move over and the safety out on the roadways, which is what the show has also really done, at least in my eyes, is it's bringing more light to our industry and what we have to deal with on certain levels. And he keeps pushing that. So even after this show dies next year and it's just reruns, he's still going to be out there posting things on Twitter, and he's already got the following, probably some from this show and other just from being an OPP officer and being that PR guy doing videos and live streams of different accidents and stuff. He will keep bringing the limelight to us and hopefully getting more people to slow down and move over.
Well, that brings us to an important question. Did Heavy Rescue 401 and Highway Through Hell in that scenario, did it have a positive impact on the towing industry? Sarah, I'm going to start with you on that. Do you think that Heavy Rescue 401 or these towing shows, how do you think it have? Did it have a positive impact? Do you think it might have had a negative impact? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's positive. I mean, I saw it more out. I'm sorry, I'm going to talk about Highway Through Hell, but I kind of think that you have your East Coast and your West Coast, and they both brought the same thing to the table, which is it brought the attention of the towing industry to the public's eye. And I think that was really important. We had the West Coast Tow Show a couple of years back, and we had some of the cast members from Highway Through Hell, and we had young boys coming up and being like so excited, and they knew all about it, and they wanted to talk to the stars, and like their eyes were just so big for the tow trucks, and that came directly from Highway Through Hell. I also was working at Tow Canada magazine, had a young boy write me in. It's probably the best piece of fan mail I've ever received in my whole life, and the only piece of fan mail I've ever received in my whole life. But he wrote me at Tow Canada to say how much he loved the magazine, and he found the magazine because of Highway Through Hell and Heavy Rescue 401. And he had been watching it, and his dad had helped him send the letter, and he's like, yeah, we watch it all the time and everything. Like, he wants to be a tow operator. And we actually stayed in contact. Like, he sent us pictures with him with tow trucks. Like, this is a future tow operator because the show, I don't want to say glamorized it, but like we have so many medical shows that make people want to be doctors. We have so many other shows that make people want to be something. This was a perfect opportunity for young boys and girls to look at it and be like, that is an interesting job. And it is an interesting job. So I think it's had a positive impact.
I think that's fair. If you take into account, let's take the show out of it. Let's just say the show didn't exist and never happened. Highway Through Hell never came to be. Heavy Rescue 401, some of the Australian shows out there never came to be. What does the general public know about a tow truck other than when they A, call them because they need them, or B, pass them on the side of the highway?
Yeah.
Right? You pass them on the side of the highway and they're recovering a transport that's down in the ditch. You see about 5 seconds of it.
Mm-hmm.
When you bring that show into play and you bring into a little more into depth what goes into this, you're right. For kids, we've seen them. They love it. This year at the tow show, they had the booth with Heavy Rescue people, people from Heavy Rescue there. And the kids loved it. How many kids did you see going up to that booth, getting a signature? Oh, I got to see John Allen. Oh, I got to see Andrew. Oh, I got to see Colin or Andrew.
Yeah.
I got to see these people and meet them. And I see them on TV every week. We watch it all the time. You're right. I think for the industry or the future generation of towing, it definitely can have that positive effect, like you're saying, Sarah.
And I think we haven't even seen the positive effect it will have on the future, because a lot of the fans that are really attached to the show are these young kids that are seeing tow trucks in a new light that our generation didn't see. And we don't know what impact this is going to have 10 years down the road on this generation of kids that grew up watching it.
Yeah, we haven't got there to that working age yet.
Maybe 5-10 years down the road, there's going to be an absolute boom in employment in the towing industry. That's my grand goal. Everybody wants to be a tow operator.
Oh my God. Yeah. There will be something that'll come out and all the reruns will replay again, and it'll be a big craze and sensation. We'll end up with a whole new generation of towers. The only problem is they're all going to get there and go, I only want to do the cool stuff I've seen on TV. What do you mean I got to be out all night and day to get to the cool stuff? Yeah, that's kind of how that works. So, G, what about you? What do you negative, positive impact on the industry? What were your thoughts on
it? I'm more so of a mixed bag. So I like Heavy Rescue 401 because it shows a lot of professionalism.
Sometimes.
And Highway Through Hell is more of go out there and get the job done. And it's I personally find Highway Through Hell is a more fun show to watch because it's got more elaborate characters, I think. Like you get a little bit more drama and stuff out there. And it's not so much technical. But when you bring it back and look at Heavy Rescue 401 as the show and the premise, you get a lot more in-depth recoveries and doing things by the book and trying to work as safely as you can for some aspects of the show. And then you still get the variety of you get some of the other guys that are just out there getting it done, doing the best they can with what they got. Like some of my favorite show was watching the old trucks do the recovery, like the old homes doing stuff out on the 401. And yeah, they struggled, but it's nice seeing that old iron out on the road, right? Are they going to be able to do it as quick or as efficiently as some of the newer trucks? Of course not. But it's still cool to see. Now, the positive effects is, once again, we do such a good job at promoting within our own inner circle of slowing down and moving over. But the TV show, like you said, brings the kids into it, and they're going to say, hey, look at that tow truck, right? And they'll grow up knowing that slowing down and moving over is the correct thing to do. And I also hope that people might rubberneck a little bit less. It's a wishful thought, but if they can get the fix of gawking at an accident on a TV show from their own hometown or their own province, it might do a little bit of good out on the roads when they're actually driving past a wreck like that.
I don't know if that would have the intended effect that you would want to have. If anything, I feel like that might hurt the rubbernecking situation because, oh, look, I want to see if it's just like on TV and crash into the guy behind me or a guy in front of me. So, no, it is true. I can see what you mean, the comparison when we compare Highway Through Hell to Heavy Rescue 401.
Mm-hmm.
They're different regions. They're different regions. They're different types of recoveries. They're different. The math is all the same. The angles of approach are all the same. Everything is all still there, but it is a different area.
And
You are
it's
going
financially different as well.
What
That's
do you
something
mean?
that you always got to think about, because when you're working in the city, where do people say the money is? In the city, right?
Okay.
So
Depends
I'm
what
sure
referring
the
to.
amount of rotators that you see running around in the GTA on the 401,
Mhm.
there's got to be more work available, right? You wouldn't see the most amount of, I think it's the most amount of rotators per kilometer in the North America is in the GTA.
Where did you ever find this stat?
I've heard it on the show.
Oh, okay.
On our show?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I've
No,
heard
on
on Heavy Rescue 401 that there's more rotators in per square kilometer than anywhere else in North America, which when you're out on the roads, you can kind of see.
Well,
right?
when you talk about the money being in the city, it is true, because there is a stat, and I don't know what it is, of how many thousands of dollars are lost when a lane on the highway is closed.
Yeah.
Because we are talking, the 401 is my understanding, the busiest highway in North America.
Yeah.
That is what they sell on the show. So when you have one lane of that blocked, and we are talking about major trade routes between Montreal, Toronto, between the ports, between everything else, like that is a major route for anything that anyone buys is normally going down that highway through that stretch.
Yeah.
So yes, their money can be lost. So when it comes to that, you need to have the quickest response, the quickest, way to open up a highway. I'm not discrediting the highways out in BC that, yeah, you can afford to just let that highway stay shut down for a day or two. But it's also more common to hear that the highways out west have been shut down for a day or two than you do here in Ontario. Closure is not an option, right? That is the tagline from the show. The OPP do a very fine job of not wanting to keep highways closed.
Mm-hmm.
They will do everything in their power, right? There's been a lot of criticism that you'll see them do their investigations and they'll shut the highway down.
Yeah.
And then once they're done and they're at home safe in their beds, send the towers out and open up the highway. Right. So there's been a lot of criticism when it comes to that side of it, but the OPP are very adamant about keeping that highway open as much as they can and keeping lanes open as much as they can. So I think your talk about why there would be more rotators would apply, because can you get jobs done, right? The old school mentality, you don't need a rotator to do that. Can you get a job done without a rotator? Yes. You're 100% correct.
But you're taking up 3 or 4 lanes instead of a lane or 2.
Yeah, and if you're talking that, yes, it's going to take longer. It's nice to see the old trucks out, but it's going to take longer. Well, when it comes to efficiency and keeping the province moving and keeping the highways open and keeping everything flowing smoothly, you don't have you're losing that ability to be a company that is running that old iron because of that. Is it fair? No. Is it the real world? Yeah. Right. So these companies that are being showcased, Preferred, Abrams, all these guys, Herbs with their rotators, and people say they're just flashy trucks that they don't need. No, there's a purpose for them too, right? Yeah. There's ways to do things safer. There's ways it's one of the 100 right ways. Yeah. Just because you know what I mean, there's 1,000 wrong ways and one of the 100 right ways. So you're right, the money is in the city, the rotators are there, the competition is there too.
Oh yeah, big time.
If your competition's got a rotator and he can clear the road quicker or more efficiently than you, well, if you want to keep up with him, you're going to need a rotator too. Mm-hmm. Rotators are definitely overtaking the industry. It's about who can have the biggest, baddest, and meanest rotators. It's become a game of that. So speaking about trouble in the GTA and where the money is, the trouble in the GTA, right? And I want to know how much you guys think this might have had effect on the show, right? I pulled up a couple headlines. They all relate back to the same thing. OPP officer sentenced for steering $500,000 in business to tow truck operator featured on reality TV. GTA tow company owner featured on Heavy Rescue 401 hit with charges. 4th OPP officer charged in towing corruption probe. Bad apples are busted. The towing industry got smoked in Toronto. We've talked about this. They got just absolutely ripped apart because of dealings that were going on. And some of them were directly related to a company from the show. I'm trying to open my link here. I can't open my link. I copied it. I can't open it. So the OPP officer sentenced for stealing $500,000 in business. An OPP officer with an exemplary service record received a suspended sentence Thursday after admitting he broke the law by steering at least $500,000 worth of business to 2 Toronto tow truck companies owned by a man featured on reality TV show. So we've talked before about corruption within police forces. Now, Toronto was one of the biggest ones hit. City of like Ottawa had some too. But the OPP in Toronto and the Toronto police were some of the biggest hit by this news.
Mm-hmm.
Did this have an effect on the show? Right? How do you hide that as an industry? And how bad does that look for the provincial police, for the towing company, and for, I want to say it's Great Pacific Media who puts out the show? Do you think this had an effect on the show being canceled and not continued?
I
Sarah?
don't think so.
I want Sarah. I didn't say G. I said Sarah.
Well, I'm going to answer your question with a question. Did they ever address it on Heavy Rescue 401? Did they ever address the ongoing crime in the GTA?
You know what? A very good question.
Because I think that you bring up a good question. Maybe this did, because I mean, we're in the industry, so we're hearing it all the time. But I feel like everybody in the industry has heard about the issues in Ontario and the crime going on. And it is public. It is in the news all the time. So I'm sure the public is hearing about it as well. And it's kind of counteracting that positive impact that we're talking about. So perhaps it did. Now, if the show had actually addressed it, I think it could have had further positive impact. I think if the show had addressed that there are some good apples and some bad apples in the industry, that would have gone a long way to improving public perception.
That's fair. As far as I know, and this is, semi-educated, as far as I know, they stopped featuring that company on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe they removed previous episodes that they were in on the show, because, I mean, what's done is done too, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if they on the show actually came out and talked about it or addressed it, or if it was just okay, well, they're no longer involved with the show and moving forward. I'm not sure.
That's too bad. That would have been an excellent platform to address.
And maybe they did, and maybe I missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying I don't believe that they did.
I don't think they did either.
No, I don't remember hearing of anything from it. And that being said, like, I don't think the TV show influenced this corruption. Meaning, I don't think the OPP officers in question were purposely feeding the business towards this individual because he was on the TV show. Right? Like, I don't think they're related in that sense. So to me, it shouldn't have an effect on the show as a whole.
If anything, it would make you a little bit more cautious on who you're feeding work to, because if you feed this guy work, it might get featured on a TV show.
Yeah. I of what I read in the article, it wasn't to do with big heavy wrecks. A lot of it was a lot of smaller, like 7-day impounds and 14-day impounds that weren't being given to first available. They were being given more. They found this just through stat tracking of what I understood and what I read in the article, where of this many 100 impounds that happened, this company just seemed to have a suspicious number of them. And that's how they started to dig deeper into it. And that's how they found it. So, no, it was definitely, the company in question was enjoyed on the show, right? Like, there was definitely some fun moments and everything like that. But, the OPP obviously took a dump on this one too.
Mm-hmm.
How bad do they look? 4 officers charged for corruption in towing while the OPP are being featured on a TV show about towing.
Yeah.
So, I know there's been talks about the politics behind the TV show and why it isn't continuing, as we mentioned early on in the episode. And you have to wonder, something like this definitely doesn't help the towing industry. Definitely doesn't help the TV show, right? And keeping it in a good light. So,
I don't think that this instance actually was part of the killing factor of the TV show, because we're in the industry. So if you go to Google, you're more likely to be served up towing related stuff, right?
Right.
Algorithms and stuff. We're more so going out and looking for it. The the news articles about the corruption in towing, I feel like wasn't widely spread as much as some other headlines. So like it happened in Toronto. Toronto news covers it. Everyone within 200 kilometers of Toronto has a decent idea of what's going on. Once you go out further in provinces, the mass public probably doesn't have the understanding of all this corruption and everything. They just watch the TV show, right? So they're going to tune in and they're still going to watch, and they don't really know that this stuff is going on behind the scenes.
Well, I don't think that's fair to say. I don't think they know that the of all the corruption that is going on in the towing industry 100%. But when it came to the actual owner of this towing company, that was broadcast, and every article related back to his involvement with Heavy Rescue 401.
Mm.
So, you know what I mean? That's your tabloid news.
Yeah.
So they are 100%. They're not finding out about the, as much maybe the gang violence behind it, all that kind of stuff. That being said, anyone who watches the show and who is an active or an avid fan of the show gets involved in all they can get for news in towing is what the news puts out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what the news puts out when it comes to towing, as we've seen, go in Google real quick and search towing in your Google News. It is going to be a lot of bad.
Yeah.
So I think more people not, but because it's the show, and because these articles link the show, and because we know how Google tracking and everything, put stuff in your face, that's stuff that you're interested in. I think you're underestimating how many people would actually, if they were fans of the show, knew about the, I think anyone I've ever talked to that watched the show knew about what happened to Steve's towing, right? I got no problem saying it. They're on the show. What happened to Steve's towing? So,
I mean, like at the end of the day, a show's a show.
100%.
The show didn't lose any entertainment value because Steve's towing wasn't there. It's not a dig at Steve's. They had some pretty decent operators, and they've done some pretty cool wrecks on the show. But just like any show, if you lose one character or one aspect of the show, it gets filled up in other places. There's lots of different companies that the TV show has featured and shown. And yeah, it kind of sucks not seeing the Steve's trucks on there, but Sonny came back. I know the last season, Sonny was working with a different company, trying to build up the heavy division of that company. Can't remember the company's name.
He was ASAP.
That Sonny was like the main guy from Steve's Towing. That was like the guy, he was the underdog that people like to follow. The guy who just came to Canada. He was a pizza delivery guy. He got into this. He started building his name, and he, once again, kind of like Colin, you can see him grow as an operator throughout the show and that character development. That was one of the main characters. I know when it first started, within like the first 3 or 4 seasons, most of the posts about Heavy Rescue 401 was featured around Sonny, because I feel like a lot of people, returning viewers, were coming back for Sonny.
Well, he had, like I said, he had quite the story. He was, I just recently watched some stuff on him. He was a refugee from Sri Lanka who came here, and you're right, was delivering pizzas. And I'm not sure how he got the job in the towing industry, or how it piqued his interest, or how any of that came to be. But then he ends up in the towing industry, right? He is, a refugee that has had to work for something. You know what I mean? It wasn't, again, not shitting on anyone else, but it wasn't, he didn't come into a family business or anything like that. Like, this guy came out, got a job, built something for himself. They show him where he buys his first house. He has his first child with his wife. Like, they really do that in depth on these characters. And you're right, you see that growth from him. So he is that underdog story that, that you want to see success from, and that you did. So yeah, the bad stuff that happened to Steve's didn't seem to affect Sonny. He managed to get out ahead of this and end up, going on and having a future in towing. Thank God. Because everything I can see from him, he's a good operator, and seems to be, again, a great person. The personalities of the characters, right? And you wonder, people have asked that question before, is, is that them? Is this real? Is this, I remember I knew very well from back in the day, I knew Nate from Herb's Towing. And people would ask me, is that Nate on a day-to-day? Or is he just put that on for a show? God, no. That is 100% that guy's energy and that guy's attitude day in, day out. Why doesn't he wear a jacket? I don't know. I asked him. I never could figure it out, right? You see that, these guys like Sonny, like, there's no doubt I've met him as well personally. And he goes, no, that's just them as people. You know what I mean? There's not one that I have met from that show who I can say that's an act for the show. So when you see these characters progress the way that you did, and these people grow and start having families and getting to showcase that on the show, how proud of a moment that is for them is definitely some of the good that the show did. So I'm glad that the trouble with the GTA that they had and wasn't a be all end all for the show and wasn't a be all end all for a lot of these characters.
I got a question for you.
Okay.
What's something that annoys you during the show? Or something you don't like about the show?
The added noises.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Drama effects. Yeah, the added noises for drama effects. The winch noises.
Yeah.
The winch noises are fake.
Yeah.
I was watching, preparing for the show, I was watching an old episode, and it was listening to the creaking and cracking of things.
Yeah.
And I've been on scenes and things definitely creak and crack and make some funny noises sometimes.
But it's not that loud.
It's not that. It's not that loud. Yeah, unless they put a mic right in, whatever was shifting, like they add some audio over top. I'd like to know, and I've always wondered this, the horns going by, if they add those in. I believe they do.
They do. And same with like the CB radio talk. They add
That's
those
not
in.
staged.
Those are definitely staged.
That's a pretty hot take.
Especially out on Highway Through Hell. They have to be staged.
I don't know about that. I'm going to do some digging on that one because I don't think they are. I think those are active. I think they, in their audio trucks, are actually recording CB traffic and then throwing in if they can use. I don't believe those are staged. I'd be curious. I might be wrong.
I think they're cherry picked. Like,
of course.
It's not so much.
I don't know if you know how TV production works.
Yeah, they could hear that come across the scanner just before they're planning on putting the actual show together. After it's all been filmed, they put that in there.
Can I let you in on a secret?
Yeah.
Can I play spoiler? You know the footage that they show of all the trucks rolling out to the scene? That's not from the day of.
I know.
So you're right. The mic, like the CB talk and everything, wasn't necessarily right from that moment. From nothing of it is that moment, right? A lot of it is done in post, but yes, the rollout scenes are done on a separate day if need be.
Or even just getting back out of the truck. That's probably not his first time getting out of the truck.
No, well, we've talked about that when we in an early episode we had Andrew, where it's like they ask you to get back in the truck and get out right before you leave, so it looks like they have shot. So yeah, no, of course, saying that it's cherry picked, 100%. That's part of production.
Mm-hmm. The only other thing that kind of bugs me is if you're actually like watching intently, you'll see a car down the ditch and they're working on that and they're planning on just getting the rigging done, and then they'll switch scenes briefly and the car's like halfway over and then it goes back to being on its side again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like if you actually like pay attention, just because the line of dialogue that someone said during that part was perfect for the moment that they were presenting the story in. And you can see the car kind of get up, or you can see in like it's a shot of one of the guys actually working down in the ditch and the van's upright in this shot. But in the last shot, it was on its side. And then the next shot, it's on its side again because they haven't got to the upright part yet.
Yeah. No, it is pretty impressive when you see the work that goes into it and the approaches that they take on how they, they have obviously a vision in their head while they're doing this filming, and the way that they can bring stuff together and cut it in to make a TV show, you know what I mean? As in depth as that. Like, this isn't just guys running around with cameras. Like, this is a full production crew that truly puts together an amazing product, for the public to see on something that you wouldn't maybe think of on, the towing industry.
Yeah.
So talking about the good, I don't want to end this on talking about the or the bad, what we hate about the show, or the trouble that companies or the OPP have ran into the show. I want to take a moment to talk about the good from the show. And it's not necessarily from the show, but it's from the group and the show. We talked about it earlier where, you guys were drooling and adoring over Colin and Gary. And God bless them for
us guys. I think you were doing some fanboying over there too.
You stole your favorites, don't you remember?
I told you my favorite is Carrie Schmidt, and my Colin bobblehead means nothing to me now. But no, the group over at Preferred Towing, Tammy as well, Gary's wife. So Tammy, Gary, and Colin have been involved in a project called Ohana Landing. Ohana Landing is a complex that can house up to 11 youth between the ages of 16 to 24 who are experiencing homelessness. These youth will live independently with support from a housing support worker who will assist them in navigating daily living. So they've given the opportunity to homeless youth to come into this housing place, to have a place to live, to learn how to properly cook, clean, care for themselves, all these kind of things, to give these people that were once thrown away by society for whatever reason, whether it was, incidents of that they might have done themselves or that were just, dealt a bad hand, and give them a chance at building something. And what's amazing about this story and about this thing that they're doing, and Tammy does a phenomenal job of promoting this, of working with sponsors, of bringing in volunteers, of doing all this. Like, this goes above and beyond. This isn't just a towing company who donates money to local charities. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. By all means, if you're a towing company that donates to charities regularly and does all that kind of stuff, that's great. Get involved with your community as much as you can. But what Tammy and Gary have done is taken things to a whole new level. They have really put their money where their mouth is. They have invested thousands of their own dollars in order to give these youth an opportunity. And what I found crazy about the whole thing was, and I didn't realize this until reading an article recently on it, is that Tammy herself was homeless at the age of 16.
Wow.
And that was really a motivating factor for her when she got into a position that she could to give back to the community and to work on Ohana Landing. I think it's phenomenal what they're doing.
Yeah. They're just such nice people.
Sarah, you've got a little bit of experience with Preferred Towing and with the Ohana Landing project, don't you?
Yeah, when they were still building it, I interviewed Tammy and asked her what they were working toward, and I was just blown away with the plans that they were coming up with at the time, and now to see it actualized, I guess 4 or 5 years later, it's incredible. Like, to already a towing company is usually involved with their community. Like, I've talked to lots of towers that are there for their community, but to go to that next step and be like, we're going to build a place where people can come, where they can feel safe. And I was just kind of looking up some updates, and it looks like they now have they had 2 single moms with toddlers, and then a few youths that were there. And then I know that when I was talking to Tammy, like, the idea is not to just house them there forever. Like, this is not the end point. This is like transitional housing. And she was going to have social workers come and work with these kids and help them finish high school, help them gain employment. Like, the idea was, how can we give them, how can we springboard them into the community? And I thought that was really incredible, because I think a lot of times donating money to charities is fantastic, but it's kind of like the end game. And for Tammy, this wasn't the end game. This was like, how can I help these kids get to the next step? And I thought that was absolutely incredible.
Right. And the fact that you go from, like I said, so managing and owning and running a towing business is a 24-hour job.
A large towing company too.
100%. It is nonstop. Like, where you find the time to, and the energy to then be able to commit to a project of this magnitude, and not just, commit to finance, like hands-on involvement. I don't know how they do it. They have got some secret recipe, right? Between the towing company, Ohana Landing. I know they're actively involved. They're both actively involved in the Provincial Towing Association, right? Mm-hmm. Tammy, when it came to a lot of the PTAO tow show, was a huge factor in that. Like, what is the secret? I'm going to sit down with Tammy one day and ask her.
I want to know how she does it all.
There must be something in the air or the water out there, because I just have no idea.
Something in the water in Sarnia sounds like
I emailed the PTAO, and I was so shocked when Tammy replies. I'm like, what don't you do?
Don't you have enough going on already?
I just want to point out that if you do go to the Preferred Towing website, they have an Ohana Landing GoFundMe. So
Perfect. So that is something that we will
feeling
share.
generous. This is a really great cause.
Absolutely.
And if you want to thank Tammy yourself, they did just put out a post saying the PTAO's 2023 tow show is 25 years, and it's going to be September 15th and 16th in Kitchener at Bingman's again. So feel free to save the date. I know last year she was running around busy as all heck. We couldn't really get a word in edgewise other than thank you. Thanks for inviting us. And then she was gone again, off like the wind.
Oh, I want to ask her how many coffees she drinks in a day. So,
Yeah.
the whole group over at Preferred Towing and Sarnia are doing a fantastic job in promoting not only the towing industry, but also promoting within their community and everything else. So I think they definitely deserved a shout out in that case.
And
So,
one last thing.
okay.
The one thing that really sets them apart, at least on the show, is when they have a mess up, you see in the next episodes how they go and make sure that's not going to happen again. Like when the one toe pin breaks, they're like, okay, we're now hooking to both toe pins on a V line into like our actual winch.
Into a floating buckle. Yeah.
And going on from that, you never see them once again hooked to one toe pin again. Right? And when when Colin was doing the rollover in the trailer, the reverse rollover, and the trailer came swinging towards them and got stopped by the outrigger, you saw in the next episode, they're doing that same rollover in their yard to learn how to do it properly the next time. And you don't see that with too many other companies. I'm not sure if it's just the film crew out there that's willing to do that, but I know that Gary's also the type of person that always trains. Train.
Practice in private, excel in public, right?
Yeah.
Are you do you have a resume in with them and you're just really trying to suck up extra here, or
No.
is that Gary? Be sure to check your email. I think TowManG might have sent you a resume and he's trying to really sell it to you on what he thinks.
No, but it's honestly good to see. Like, you don't see too many tow companies. I know the companies that I work for is a lot smaller scale, and I think you were pretty much the only person to say, okay, so what would you do differently on that wreck? And I've never had that again. So now I'm the person that's always got to say, what would I do differently?
No, I think looking back at any job that you've done, big or small, it's super important to go over it and see where you made your mistakes, because no recovery, no job was perfect. And we're all going to make mistakes and grow and learn from them. But you have to be able to criticize and question yourself, honestly, and say, what would you do different? You go, yeah, I would have ran that line here instead of here. I would have lifted here instead of here. And I might have used this instead of that. So no, any company that can use that, and especially in, the public eye like that on a TV show to help, show that the industry is about advancing and moving forward, is very important to see. So that being said, if you haven't already, be sure Discovery Canada has the new episodes of Heavy Rescue 401. They will have came out yesterday, so go over and check out season 7, episode 1 now, and
Season
coming out
season 8.
I think it's season 7. I think it's season 7. Episode
Season
1.
7.
Be sure to check it out. Google it. Yeah, see, there you go. Season 7. Listen to producer Sarah. She knows what he's talking about.
I looked it up at the beginning of the episode, so we knew what we were talking about.
There we go. So we will be back again next week. It will not be more Heavy Rescue talk. We're not just going to do this every week. But with the new season out, it was a good time to talk, catch up on it, and go over some of our things we like or dislike from the show. So that being said, on behalf of myself, TowManG, and producer Sarah, thank you for checking it out. Don't forget to head over to towinglife.ca for all the information on everything we got going on. And we'll see you next week. Take care.
Toodles.
Bye. I was just trying to find my old article that I wrote on preferred towing, and I can't find it on the internet anywhere.
Gary's the best.
Gary is the best.
Colin's
We're like
the best.
fanboying over Gary.
Gary reminds me of Dave.
Yes.
Gary's like a Dave.
And unlike Heavy Rescue 4, we are not going anywhere.
You didn't see the blooper reel?